And I cracked the door open and the two bullies like are there. And I went to myself, you can't be brave unless you're afraid. So then I took back from the door and I went, kicked the door as hard as I could and kicked it in. And I jumped in the room and I went like this. And I said, I know Kung Fu. I am the master of Chinese heart boxing, which is this thing I'd invented. I said, like, I'm going to become the master of Chinese heart boxing. And then the boys looked scared and they went like, he looks like he really knows Kung Fu. Does he know? How do you know that? And everything. They said, like, don't fight me. I don't want to hurt you. Like this. And so then I kind of faced off against him and they ran out. They're like, Fred learned Kung Fu. And they ran out and everything. And I was just like, okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today we have a special guest. He is Korean American writer, producer, and performer, CPTSD and trauma survivor, master storyteller, public speaker, writer, a leader, and a blogger. Today we have with us the amazing Fred Chong Rutherford. Fred, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Ryan. And thank you so much for having me on. It's really good to see you. So having a good day so far.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the podcast and to explore your creative world. Does that sound exciting?
It does. I don't I feel awkward talking about myself. And so it's a chance to just do some of that and talk like creativity too, which is like it's my favorite subject, is talking about art and the impulses that drive like people to make things and specifically like to make and share them like with people too.
So, in the introduction, I mentioned quite a few things: writer, producer, performer, speaker. But which one would you say currently you are working on the most at this time?
I think that the umbrella for me is storyteller, and then of that rubric, like writer is where my focus is. It's really where if I look back, right to the beginning, I was one of those kids who got lucky in a way and said, I love this. Like writing was magic for me the moment that I understood it as a child. And then I went through years of like thinking, oh, that was kid stuff, like what you're thinking about, and then kind of coming full circle and realize like, no, if I met that little kid, I'd think that kid was pretty smart, and I'd be like, yeah, dude, you got it. And so kind of coming back to that, and I've realized that literally everything else is in support of like the writing like itself too. It's the one thing that I feel like I haven't really pushed myself to do, like to become like an author is not the thing like I pushed myself to do. And then I said, well, that's not actually true because, I wrote like three books before, but I didn't, there's just a disaster happened like when I was in my 20s. Self-sabotage happened like when I was in my 20s. So I lost those books. And it took a long time for me to come back like to that writing. And but it's like I think just that tentativeness. So it's only been very recently that I'm in like, you know what? I always want to be a writer. I write a lot. Become an author. That's like your focus like right now. So that's really like the area where I'm focused on. It's just like, finish like these books and then, get them, start querying the agents and see like who picks like one of them up like at that point. And then plus it's realizing that like all these other things that I do I love them, and if I'm lucky, I'm gonna get to keep doing them, but all of them in a weird way like support like the way that I write and the kind of writing that I do. It's like if I write dialogue, I'm one of these people that like I'm performing the character sometimes, like when I'm writing the dialogue. So it's like I'm not just writing it, like sometimes in my head I'm making a voice, or sometimes out loud I'll read it back to me. It's like if I have like a wizened old woman character, who's saying like um you and your uh you and your colleagues like were not guilty like of treason. I'm not just gonna write that. I'm gonna be like, you and your colleagues are not guilty of treason, Tuluju the orc. So that's like that's kind of like the way that I write stuff. So it's like, well, hey, so naturally it's like, I kind of can do voiceover stuff, and I kind of can do these other things, or I can be in improv and play goofy characters and everything. But a lot of it's just coming right back like to, just kind of how I write like those things and how I remember things too. So.
My next question.
Long-winded way of
So,
saying like, hey, out of all those things, I just want to be an author.
but we see that your creativity just explodes. It's like fireworks. It's just it just keeps going. And but what I would like to explore is how did it start? Like what was the first spark of creativity or what sparked your interest in creativity? And when I say spark the interest, I mean not just to consume other people's creativity, but what was that spark that perhaps inspired you to think, hey, I can do my own creativity?
I literally just wrote this like 3 weeks ago. I've been it's kind of weird. I'm not famous. I'm maybe like minor famous, but I don't think I'm famous. So it's kind of weird to be writing a memoir when you're not famous. And like there's part of my head is like, am I a narcissist? I know I'm not a narcissist. I don't have narcissistic personality disorder. That's not me. But then I've got this little voice in me saying like, it's like, God, you're writing a memoir. It's like so weird. But it's not weird because like probably like you, and other folks, I've got things in my childhood that are a little rough. And I've been writing that. I've told that story on stage before, like parts of it, like in things, and um, writing like the book like about that that I'm working on has been it's been a one fun like artistic journey. So one of the stories that I wrote down was literally the question that you just asked. It was I was 7 years old and I loved fantasy books and just stuff with wizards and dragons and I love Star Wars and a lot of stuff too. And there's this thing that I noticed in a lot of books is that the wizards had spell books and witches like had spell books too. So it's like you would write words down and then the words, the words could be a formula for a potion or they could be like a spell. And then also wizards a lot of times would speak out something. Like they would speak it out and then the thing like would happen. And then sometimes you'd have your spell book and you'd speak it out and the thing would happen. Like that's a lot of like kind of Ursula K. Le Guin to Tolkien to um C.S. Lewis, just there's so many. Like I'm not even hitting the tip of like the iceberg yet. And I was 7 and I'd I just done this goofy thing to stop these bullies like from bullying me. And I came back like from the bathroom like after that. And then I came into class and everything and just real quiet private victory. Like I knew that like, okay, these bullies, they're gonna leave me alone after this. And the whole room was quiet. Like everybody was just doing writing practice. I don't know if you remember that. Like, I don't know if you did this like in school. Like you'd be 7 and then you're doing cursive practice and you're just
Yeah.
trying to fit like your letters and the lines and everything. And what people were doing was we were supposed to be like transcribing like simple poems like in our own handwriting and everything. And then I sat down and I watched everybody like just writing like in their tablets, and like our little copybooks and everything. And I was about to start writing everything, and then it struck me that I was in wizard school, and we were all transcribing like thought and idea and poetry and these words like ourselves onto paper somewhere. And then someday somebody might read what we wrote, and then it's like you've connected and communicated to that person. And then suddenly my brain went like, oh wow, that's like what Ursula K. Le Guin does, and that's what Tolkien does, and that's what C.S. Lewis does and everything. And then I was like, and that's what I'm doing. And so then I just went about and I really started working at my cursive at that point. I was like, I want to get good at cursive, because it suddenly had meaning to me. And then it literally occurred to me like right then, wait a minute, all these authors that I love, they're human and I'm a human too. I could write my own things. And what that idea was. And so then in that class, like I didn't copy the poems. I started to write my own, like in the poem in the copybook, like at that point. And that was the first day. And I remember at Hilltop Elementary School, after, literally right after. And it's just like um that memory like is a gift like for me. And I've learned later that like not every person who writes like has that moment, but there's an awful lot of writer. It's just sort of a strange coincidence like for me. Like uh a lot of writers that I love that I've gotten to meet have something similar like where they started to write when they were very, very young. And then the other common thread is that you're sort of young and you notice there's something strange about the world, and I need a way to get those thoughts down about what I think is strange like about the world. And so that's some of it. Now, I'm not able to articulate like all of that like it's seven, but that's the impulse and like that's like where it started, like right there. So
Wow. So you were saying that you had an encounter with bullies.
mhm.
If I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what happened or what the exact scenario was. But like if you would like to share, like what happened that you had this feeling of inner victory, and after that, you had this vision of you in like wizard school.
Well, it's a long story. It's part of my memoir, but like the short version of it is that the place where I grew up, I was born in Los Angeles in Torrance specifically. My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot. Like I learned how to talk like in Georgia, so I actually had a Southern accent when I was a kid until it kind of got bullied out of me, like as a kid, basically. But and then eventually, I think we're about three. We moved to this small town in on the coast of Washington, the Washington State, and the town where I grew up in, there was just like there was no people of color there. Like at that age, there was like I think one other family or two like other families. I think one of the kids like were Filipino, and then the other was a Japanese kid. And I actually wasn't allowed to play with him because my mom is Korean, and she was just no, you can't because my mom grew up like when Imperial Japan occupied Korea. Like she was actually born like during the Imperial Japanese occupation there. And it's like the 70s, it's the late 70s, post-Vietnam, and the kids there did not accept me. Just period. And so the bullying started like very early. Like the basically preschool was fine, and I made little friends there. But literally, like the very first bus ride that I had, there were kids doing just really bullying, like right away. Just racist kind of things like being said. And racist language like being used to me. Like I learned a lot of like racist terms for Asian people, like from those kids, like within a week that I'd never ever heard like before. And that kept going for years. And then in my house, my parents were both, I believe they were both trauma survivors, but they never got therapy and they never really dealt with it. And so that, this might sound familiar to some people if you know family systems, like where, you know, who is the golden child, who is the scapegoat, I spent a lot of my time like just wanting to feel safe. And so a lot of times like I would like hide in the closet like of my bedroom or like a bed, I had a shared bedroom. Then eventually like I got very, very lucky. I got my own bedroom, but I would literally just go hide like in this one space, like in the closet and try to stuff my ears and everything. And I started to disassociate, I think, when I was probably about like 5 and 6 years old. At that point, I sometimes have like visual hallucinations. That's scary because that's like a sign of potentially like schizophrenia, and I'm dealing like with all these things. And my parents are loving, but they're also, my dad's abusive and my mom is abusive, but not, I want to be clear, like, it's not like the one side of either of them by any stretch, like of the imagination, because my mom also loved me like a lot too. And, the bullying like got to a point like where I actually hurt myself. Like I took my own life, and my mom saved me like from that, and I suppressed that memory for probably about over 40 years. The version of that I remembered was the version that my mom told me to say, which is like when she watched a lot of TV, so somehow she watched people do like CPR or something like I think, and I think that she breathed she breathed me like back to life and everything, and I had a whole set of like hallucinations, which I've seen YouTube videos of other people talking about it. It's very familiar to me, like what they're describing, like what happened like after that too. And I experienced like all that like at 7, and the first thing my mom says is like, "Hey, uh, people take you away when things like this happen, so you can't tell anybody. You just don't tell anybody about this. Don't tell them like this happened." I learned much later, like in my life, why my mom said that. That's probably not the thing you should ever say to somebody, but I know why my mom said it, and she didn't say it like out of a hateful or hurtful place. she said it because of the things that she had gone through, like in her own life, that were her own secrets too at that point. And I, I was struggling like a lot, and my parents are struggling because there's like, well, the other kids are so easy compared to this one, and both of my parents like had previous marriages, and I had white siblings like from my dad's, first marriage, and I don't think of them as half siblings, but there is like that part where you're not quite like understand, and I always felt like so alone and so alone. And then um my favorite sister, and so this was like a secret in the family. The people knew that in the family that, well, he did something and he hurt himself, but that was a secret between me and mom. Like it wasn't just that I hurt myself, it's that I died, and that she brought me back. And so because my kid brain just went like, well, if I can't escape like any of this, maybe this is a way out and everything. And it was very dumb. It was very painful, like it hurt a lot. Like, and I was just felt awful like afterwards, not just psychically awful, but like physically awful, like just, body on fire and just feeling just horrible like after that. And I had one of my sisters, her name is Diana, and she's the favorite sister like in the family for so many reasons. And she was like my favorite person in the world. Like if she talked to me, she was like it was like you were talking to Wonder Woman plus Gandalf like at the same time. Like she was very empathetic and smart and creative, and I think borderline a little crazy in fun ways and things too. And it turned out she was struggling like with her own things like at the time too. But she came to visit and she didn't know that I'd done that, but she knew something was up with me. And so I got to do a very special thing. I got to spend like a whole day like with her. And we had this walk on the beach, like where we flew kites. And there's uh a lot happened like on that walk. Like we had a funeral, she found like a seagull that had passed away. We had a funeral for Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and she sang a hymn that she made up like on the spot, which I can still hear the music like in my head, and I can't sing it. Like I wish I could take it out of my head and let people hear like what that was like and everything. But the end of like that walk, she was like basically like the two of us talked, and she said I had there were these kids that had been bullying another kid on the playground, and this was right before like I took my life, and I was like, these kids were bullying this other kid like on the playground, and I ran out in the playground and I screamed at like all those kids like to stop, and I just was yelling at them, just stop it, like and everything. And then the kid took off and he was crying and everything, and then I went to go, teacher checked on us and everything, and I said, well, let me go check on like that kid, see how he's doing. And I went over to talk to the kid, and I was like, hey, are you okay? And he said, get away from me. I don't want to be friends with a G word, you know? And I was just like, ugh, I just felt like defeated and everything. And then I took my life like a few days like after that and stuff. And so she knew about the playground part and everything. And I said, yeah, it's like, I did the wrong thing. Like I shouldn't have yelled at everybody like that. And that was mean. And I shouldn't have done that. And Diana was like, no. No, you are wrong. WRONG, 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 wrong. No, you did the right thing. I was like, really? She's like, yes. She said, were you scared like when you did that? And I go, yeah. And she goes, so you had to be brave. And I go, but I wasn't brave. Like brave people like are knights and they fight things. She said, no, brave people do things when they're afraid. You can't be brave unless you're afraid. And it's like, well, it's like, oh, it's kind of stuck with me, and it still did. And I've heard other people say this like over the years too, as in my over the years, like that's like why I don't it's why I personally don't buy the idea of like fake it till you make it. If it works for you and it's helping you, yes, great. Do the thing that helps you, right? But you don't have to fake it. You have to do it. And if you're scared and you do it, it's your chance to get to be brave. How often do we get to be brave? Anytime we're scared. Anytime we're scared and we do the thing anyway, you get a chance like to be brave. And so then that was like burned into my head too. And then um like right after I had hurt myself, I literally saw like my first kung fu movie like the same day, like after I hurt myself. And so I found this channel that would show kung fu movies and everything. And so I was watching, these Asian people, and they're like, dude, like jumping 50 feet in the air and magic and everything. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Is this like where Star Wars comes from and everything? It's like, oh, maybe that's how you become a wizard. And my brain's just like, connecting like all these dots like for this stuff. And there were these bullies like in at Hilltop that like there were I don't know what it was, but there's just like a couple of older kids and they would camp out in the bathroom and they would guard the bathroom. And if you weren't allowed to use if they determined you were not allowed to use the bathroom, they would beat you up. Like I got beaten up a couple times like for trying to use the bathroom there. And I was, you know, I had to go to the bath, like one of the times like in class, like I was so scared to go to the bathroom. Like I actually sat there and I peed my pants like in class. And it was so embarrassing. My parents were so upset at me. And that's just a weird thing to do, like in class and everything. And it's after all of like this stuff, and I'm in class, and it's like I have to go to the bathroom. And in my head, I'm hearing, you can't be brave unless you're afraid. And I'd already had this idea of like, I'd kind of been practicing stuff that I'd seen in the Kung Fu movies. And now I knew I didn't know Kung Fu. And I was like, I have to learn how to do Kung Fu at some point. But what if maybe there's some kind of magic, like if I can look like it or do something like that and everything. And so I was like, I had to go to the bathroom. It's like, raise my hand. It's like, yes, Red. It's like, can I take the bathroom pass and go to the bathroom? It's like, yeah, the pass is like, hanging up. Go ahead. So went and got the pass and everything. And I said, I'm going to go into the bathroom we're not supposed to go into because there's going to be like the break in between classes, like everything. So I actually didn't need like the bathroom pass, but so I go to the bathroom I'm not supposed to use, and I crack the door open, and the two bullies like are there, and I went to myself, you can't be brave unless you're afraid. So then I took back from the door and I went and kicked the door as hard as I could and kicked it in, and I jumped in the room and I went like this, and I said, I know Kung Fu. I am the master of Chinese heart boxing, which is this thing I'd invented. I said, like, I'm going to become the master of Chinese heart boxing. And then the boys looked scared and they went like, he looks like he really knows Kung Fu. Does he know? How do you know that? And everything. And I said, like, don't fight me. I don't want to hurt you. Like this. And so then I kind of faced off against him and then they ran out. They're like, Fred learned Kung Fu. And they ran out and everything. And I was just like, okay. And so then, I went to the bathroom and everything. And then I took my time, and then, the break was over, and so I got back to class late. So I technically didn't need the pass, but there was something in my head that was like, this is symbolic. I wouldn't have used these words at the time, but I was like, it's symbolic to have the pass, and it's symbolic to do this and to face and everything like that. And then kind of, I was just very proud of myself. I was like, nobody, it's like I don't think I was trying to explain to people what was going on, but I wasn't quite explaining it. So but I wasn't also getting the help that I needed to deal with it. So I luckily got help like from this really special person, and then just these random tangents, and then was able to do this goofy thing. And then that's like when I came back to class like and everything too, and was writing those poems and everything. And that's actually one of the poems I wrote is like, please remember you have to learn Kung Fu in the future because you're not a liar. So
Well, I don't think it was a goofy thing. I think it was a brave thing that you did, going in there and um, facing something that you were afraid of. And it's a beautiful story that you've shared, facing fears, because as creatives, there are many times when we have fears, but just hearing the story of a child practicing bravery, I think all of us can learn from that. So thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome. Like I have I have an opinion on fear that like I think that sometimes people give advice like about fear. And again, it's the same thing as like fake it till you make it. Like if the standard advice like about fear works for you, then do that, right? But the standard advice about fear is often like don't be afraid or push your fear down or push it away, like or set it aside or tell it to shut up or something like that. But it's inside of us, right? So it's like when you deal with it that way, it's like you're telling yourself, shut up, go away, don't deal with this right now. And all fear is doing is fear is just trying to keep you alive, you know. Fear is the oldest emotion. It's the first one because literally all animal life, like all animal life on Earth has fear, right? Like a spider has fear. And I mentioned spiders specifically because like spiders can be like give you heebie-jeebies and they freak you out and they look scary and everything, right? But you walk into a room and there's a big old spider, like this big, right? But you're a giant compared to that spider. So what does the spider do when it sees you? It's going to do one of three things. It's going to either fight, it's either going to fight, flight, or freeze, right? Fight, rears up, gets ready to bite you, right? Which rarely ever happens, right? Flight, skitters away fast as you can, which also gives most people the heebie-jeebies because it's like, watching like this thing like skitter away or freeze, right? Like it freezes itself in place. All three of those things take a lot of energy to do. It takes a lot of energy to be frozen, right? To be just stuck like in place right there, right there. But of course, the spider's going to do that because there's a literal giant, kind of facing it right now. And the reason it's doing those things is because it's afraid. Now, it doesn't feel it the same way we do, but we have the exact same reactions and everything like as well, right? So why would we have that reaction as a creator? Like why would some creative thing that you're doing give you like that reaction? Because there's no giant like in the room, but there is a giant in the room, and it's a giant that we've imagined, right?
Mm.
And that imaginary giant is just you're doing something new or different or outside of like your comfort zone, right? Like because the best way to survive is just keep doing the things that you've been doing. The biological machine of your mind and body knows that if I just keep doing the things the way that I've always been doing it, like I'll probably still be alive. Now there's faults like with that thinking. Like if you have an addiction and that addiction is going to hit right like with that wiring and you'll continue like that addiction and that's actually a false positive like on that idea like right there, right? But in the realm of like fear, of course you're going to be scared when you're trying to do something you haven't done before or something that you're nervous about or something that, or like if you do a thing and it puts you like into like a spiral and you don't like feeling like that, your body knows. So it's going to generate like some of those things for you, right?
Mhm.
It's a gift, right? Because it's like it's when there is no giant actually in the room, when there's not physically a giant in the room, when there is no grizzly bear about to eat you and you're trying to do something creative and you feel scared, thank you. Because it's your whole everything is in tune. Everybody recognizes, your unconscious, your limbic system, your nervous system, all your emotions, they all recognize, hey, hey, you're doing something new. You know that? Like you haven't, so you maybe done this once before. Do you know that? Do you know that you haven't done this before? Hey, and you're getting all that signal, right? And then what's the gift of that signal? You get a chance to be brave. You don't have to tell anybody you were brave, but the chance is like right in front of you. Every single time that you're scared, you get a chance like to go be brave, like and go do the thing anyway. I don't mock, I literally don't mock anybody's fears, period. You know, it's an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine is why specifically. But it's because we are afraid of like what we are afraid of. And if you can't overcome those fears, you're not a bad person or terrible or anything like that. But every time that fear comes up, whatever it is, you can't be brave unless you're afraid.
How did you convert that love for creativity into a passion, into a career?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Um, I'm still working on the career. Like storytelling as the broad rubric, right? Like I have a professional day job, like as a product manager and kind of product executive, right? And there's so many ways you can approach that career. a lot of us approach that career like as storytelling. You know, you tell the story of needs that people have, and then you bring people together to try to meet like those needs, right? So that was one way to convert this thing that I love to do like into that, right? But the career that I'm trying to establish as an author is a different one. And there's similarities, right? Like doing the work, right? Like do Molly Gowdery, am I doing scales? Like am I practicing like every day? Am I finding like my mechanisms like to do that? I got really lucky in my 20s. I found a writing mentor who it was very special, and he was a really special guy, and I was incredibly lucky. And in a lot of ways, like I threw away that relationship, and he passed on like about a year and a half like after like we had met like each other, and that was unexpected. Apparently, like he was sick at the time. Um, so weirdly, like there's this movie called Finding Forrester that movie's I understand like why people find that movie problematic, but for me it's like, oh, I actually had an experience kind of like that movie on the surface, like in some ways too, just like, you know, connecting like with an author and everything. And he gave me like a discipline, some specific things to do to like, you know, I'm a write every day kind of writer is what I am. And part of that is because like of him and just like having this love of the written word and typing. Like I learned how to type when I was like 13. You know, I eventually like actually took a typing class, and then my typing speed like went through the roof. So it's like I literally can type faster than I can talk. And I can talk like really fast and obviously talk like at a clip, you know, but I just can just like just really fast and everything on this. And so it's just been the craft part of writing, the getting it out kind of part, learning a lot of things like over the years and really honing in, especially over the last like few, on like how to just give myself permission to just don't think about it, just write it first. Learning how to separate writing from editing and keep those things like separate. You know, it's like if you want to stop yourself from writing, try to edit like while you're writing. If you want to stop yourself from editing, try to write while you're editing. But if you do these two things separately as part of like the totality of like what you're doing, just treat them as like their own, you know, part of like the umbrella, but they're their own crafts, you'll at least like be able to get like the material out, right? And then once you've got the material out, the thing that I think I've been the weakest at is just like I can share it like with, you know, if I've got a group, I can share it with the group and get feedback and do that. The thing I've been weakest about is just like go submit things like to people and just let them say no or let them say yes and, you know, see like where things go from there too. So that's the part that I'm working on like now as well. Like I think that's a thing that like I procrastinated on multiple times and then multiple times in my life. I've just some lucky thing like has happened and I've met like someone and then I've self-sabotaged like when that happened in the past. And so, you know, through a lot of work and therapy and you know, getting to know yourself, like I know that like those things like aren't there like anymore. So, um ultimately it's just going to come down to the quality of the work. Like I can be presentable and I can talk about things and I can have the right ideas and I can do everything right, but if the work itself like isn't there, it's not there. And if people don't, if it doesn't speak to the people that I'm trying to reach out to, it doesn't speak to them. And that's just life. But if I'm lucky, you know, hopefully some of my stories that connect with an agent and then they connect like with a publisher and then hopefully they connect like with an audience, like above all. So, so getting to know all of like those pieces is like, depending on how you want to count it, like all of those pieces that I'm describing are like a 30-year journey or a 43-year journey, like depending on how you want to look at that. But I know that like for the first like 11 years like of my life, it was all just like, you know, write in secret and then, you know, use school assignments as a way to submit things that I'm doing. And then like, how are you always like, you know, whenever there's a creative writing assignment, like it's almost like you've got it done beforehand. It's like, well, because most of the time I did, because I'd already written it. I was just like, hey, maybe this is a way to find out like what somebody thinks, you know, with that too. So
Uh, Before you start a project, how do you approach it? Do you have like a ritual before getting started or any special techniques that you can share with the audience?
actually, I do have rituals now that I'm thinking about it. I have a whole set of rituals that I'm doing as like kind of regular practice, basically. So I do an exercise in the morning called morning pages. I type them they're 100% write them longhand, but I learned how to do it when I was in my 20s, and I learned how to do it before I read Julia Cameron's book. I actually think Julia Cameron's book is great. I finally read her book like this year, and I learned it all backwards. I learned like about half to three quarters of what's in the book just backwards from this. I'm like, well, you probably, when you were learning this stuff in your 20s, probably would be easier if you just read the book like back then. But like, I did it the hard way. But the morning pages ritual, like I learned that. So just, type out roughly 750 words and then, just keep track like of that. And then I set aside time to sit and write. I have a 10-minute ritual, which is just like set a timer for 10 minutes and then I pop open one of my notebooks and I just write like by longhand. And that particular ritual is start a new story till it's done, and then just pick it up, and then only work on that like during that 10-minute period. And sometimes it's an essay, and sometimes it's a story, and and then who knows what's going to come from that, if anything. Sometimes it's just an exercise, sometimes it's a snippet from something else, sometimes it's like, oh, actually, this could be something here. And sometimes it's me like reading it and I just go, huh, yeah, yeah, no. But um but a lot of times there's always like something like in there too. And and it's a chance like to give yourself like critique as well. I think I reread that like from time to time. Critique is tough because sometimes people think critique is only praise, or sometimes but most people think critique is only criticism. And you really got to balance it, right? It's like if you were doing if critique and if criticism and praise were dumbbells, if you're only working the praise muscle, you've got one giant arm, and this is weak. And if you're only doing the critique muscle, which I think most creatives do, you've got this giant Popeye bicep, or this giant bicep, like over here, like a cartoon character, and then this one is just like a noodle. And if this is a noodle for you, it's a noodle for other people, which means that if you can't do this for other people well, you probably can't do it for yourself well, and vice versa. If you can't do it for yourself well, you probably can't do it for other people like very well, which means that you're not building up the things that you need in order to get better. So creating that material is just a chance like to edit and critique like yourself like a little bit too. And then when it comes to a longer story like itself, um, I found out I'm not the only person that does this too. Like the thing lately for me has been, I guess there's a theme, like for some of the stuff we're talking about. The thing lately has been like, is this story scary to me? And if it is, I'm like, let's tell that one, right? Like the memoir, like writing a memoir about myself is scary for so many reasons. Like I still keep coming up with reasons for like, well, you're not famous, dude. Like, why are you writing a book about yourself? Like that voice, and then I have to remind myself, it's like, well, if another person told me the story, I would be interested in it. So, okay, like be supportive of yourself means you can be supportive of other people. If you can't be supportive of yourself, chances are you actually have a blind spot. If you run into people who are like you're probably doing things to put cold water on them. I'm not an artist who wants to put cold water on anybody. I am I'm trying to be inhabit like my Gandalf era and wear my own Nenya ring of fire to help like inspire people too, like as I'm out like in the world. So I can't throw cold water on myself, and I'm not going to throw cold water on other people like either. So am I building like those things like for that too? And then with the writing itself, it's like time sprints. I do 50-minute sprints like with my writing. So, just get the timer out, hit that, and then do like the work at that point. I've also built up rituals with journals and things. Like I've got like it's taken me a long time. I finally found a system that works for me. Like I use traveler's notebooks because you can, they're basically these leather covers that you can, and they're kind of rectangular and they're a little compact, and like you can swap out the notebooks and things in there, and the page count in the notebooks is shorter than like a Moleskine, like or something like that. So what I've discovered is that like if I'm doing a longer work, I don't tend to write more than 64 or 128 pages. Like if I looked at old notebooks, it's like there'd only be like half or three-quarters of the notebook done. But when I started switching to the traveler stuff, I'd end up filling up like all the notebooks just like appropriately with like the material like for these things too. And then um uh, I have like the way that like I do the writing itself is like I keep a process journal, like here's the day that I started and I have like one journal which is like me doing snippets of things. When it gets to the point where I'm like I think this is going to be longer, I transfer all of that like into a complete notebook just for that, and I transcribe it. I leave a note for myself, transcribe in this date, transfer to this notebook, back to the other notebook, and like keep going. I keep track of like milestones like for myself, like of when I'm going. Titling is a milestone. I always change the title at some point. I struggle like what the title is, and then I always change it later. So I don't know what that means, but I track like those milestones in there. I track like when I finish the first draft, second draft, like third draft, like etc. And then do all of that on paper. And I started doing the paper journaling 100% just for fun. Like I think sometimes people want to justify their productivity hacks or like there's so many YouTube videos about like, hey, you want to hack your process or like, it's just literally fun. I just like it. And, working on the memoir helped me reconnect to the memory of like, oh yeah, and writing things down with a pen on paper is wizard craft. So every time I'm doing that, like I'm practicing like, my wizard craft and I've got like my leather bound spell books and all these things like that I'm working on like in there too. So yes, I have special pens. I've got special pens that are only like for certain notebooks, like and things like that. I use like specific brands like for all these things too, and I just love it. And the paper and the ink and just all like that process like is kind of beautiful for me. So if I think that a lot of writers have similar-ish kinds of things, but I would say that the through line for all of it is do the work and do it in a way that's fun for you. And then
Mm.
that's how you're going to keep getting better, like whatever it is you do. Like the more reps you do, like the better you get. It's not true for every writer. Like, and that's something else like that I think is important. I like to write every day, and that's me practicing like Molly Gottlieb said, like my piano scales, like essentially is doing like that. Whether I'm like writing like the novel or the memoir or short story, like whatever it is. But that's my thing is just like that the craft part of it is just like you tend to get better at something that you do like all the time. And I love it so much that I don't like resting from it. Like I was actually been sick like the last few weeks and was bedridden like for a week and I hated it. Like I was trying to get up and like go write things and that's actually not a good thing to do. I needed to lay down. But I love it so much, it's all I want to do. If I find an excuse to scratch something on paper, like I'm gonna do it. And yeah, so work every day, work like in these ways that I think are fun for myself. And I think there's a lot of value like in time to writing and writing things like down on paper too, in addition to typing like a maniac.
And with your memoir, is that a completed work or is it still a work in progress?
It's both. Like, I, well, here's one of the things. Like, I learned this summer that you actually don't have to have the memoir done before you pitch it to people. So that was eye-opening. And then somebody has asked for it. It's been, what was it, July, August, September, October. It's been 4 months, and I should have already sent it to her. We'll see if she's still interested. And even after she gets it, she might not be interested in it. But I'm like, I got a little obsessed with the thing I was writing, and so I decided to try to complete the first half like of the book. And so that's basically done. It's like 90% finished like right now. So there's a little bit I got to finish and then a rewrite. And then I have to, the next thing for me is like hey, go do the work, but also don't overdo the work, because
Mm.
there's that balance. Like you can rewrite forever. I'm going to paraphrase like Da Vinci. Da Vinci, paraphrasing Da Vinci in English and paraphrasing not even the translation like into something else. It's like Da Vinci, I think, said, um, nothing is ever finished. It's just abandoned, you know.
Mm.
But I don't think I'm abandoning it, but you can like you can sit there and hone and hone and hone and hone forever. But there is also another side to it, which is like you also can like not maybe hone enough. And I do like have my own quality metrics of like I think this is like my best work. And it's really it's really getting it to the point like where I can accept things that I think are maybe not to what I think it should be, but also I need to get it let go of it because I'm not going to notice like some of the things that other people notice too. And I really want for that book and for my novel and then the ones that are going to come, I want to find that team. Like I want to find like that editor that I connect with who's going to notice things that I just don't see. I want to find that agent who we connect and like each other. And she knows, oh, look, this maniac who writes all the time is a cash cow. And then, but also that we connect like on some human level, like with something too. And I want to connect with an audience. Like I want to find the people who I want to find the people who need to hear a story about like a 7-year-old kid who like, you know, said I'm the master of Chinese art boxing, and that need to hear that. And and I want to find the people that need like these stories too. It's like I'm trying to write the stories down that I haven't seen. Like that I would love for people like to connect with, too, just in order to get that as well. So I want to find those folks. I want to find the person who wants to help me publicize these things. I want to find the publisher who believes like in these books, like especially in these days, man. It's like if you listen to a lot of the common wisdom, it's like the common wisdom is nobody reads anymore and print is dead and books like are a dying art form. And it's like, great, let me go find the people that still like things like on paper and want like books and or if you read ebooks, like great, do your thing, man. Let me go find like those people and connect with them. And it's really like that's the thing I'm looking the most forward to is just like, am I going to be lucky enough to do good enough work that gets the attention of folks that I can connect with as well? And like self-publishing is awesome and there's so much good like in that area. But the reason I'm trying to pursue like the traditional publishing route is like I just want to go find those people and connect with them because they sound amazing. Like someone who loves the written word so much that they just spend their life saying like, here's how I think it could be better. Wow. I mean, that's an editor, like to a T. It's just that's what they're doing, like for you, right? Copy editor. Hey, did you notice that this semicolon created a gerund like over here? Like finding that person, if you're part of the process, like I'm a grammar nerd, but I'm like, wow, like if I found like that person, holy crap, that'd be amazing. Cover artist, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm a visual artist. Like I have like my goofy drawings and pastels and things that I'm doing, right? But finding like a person who just does that like they make posters like for books. That's your thing? Wow. Like getting to connect to all of like these people in the future, like that's like if I'm lucky, if I've written something good and I'm lucky enough to connect like with the right people and I get to meet like these people, just wow. How lucky is that like going to be, you know?
How do you see your creativity evolving in the future?
I think that the next phase for me is I'm hoping that I can have a writing career. And if I'm going to set a bar for myself, I'm hoping writing career like Danny Shapiro or Megan O'Rourke or Arthur Klang or half a dozen like other writers like in here too, Ethan Rutherford or Mary Collins or Dothan Brello or Molly Gowdery or quite a few people too. And I like Danny Shapiro, like especially for me, she's been kind of like 50-50. She's literally been like 50-50 with like nonfiction, like to fiction, like as she's written. I don't know if I have as much memoir in me as she does. I do know that like I've got like my own story. I have like a book about my mom. I'd love to write too, which I think would be complementary to my own book. If my own book is like lucky enough like to get published. I've also got like a lot of fiction too. Like I wrote my memoir, but I also wrote a novel like last year too. It's a high fantasy novel set in ancient Korea, and I'd love to be one of those guys too, who's like a Terry Pratchett or like a Stephen King, who's just like, boy, I'm really setting the bar for myself, right? I just want to be like super famous and very prolific and have written like 25 books. But that's what my hope is. It's like I think I have it in me to do it. Like if I'm lucky enough and I can find the right people and I live long enough, like I think I can write like that kind of thing. And then as I'm doing like all that writing, I hope that I also get to be um, a teacher, like in some way too, and also like an editor. Like maybe not like I don't mean like I'm getting paid as an editor for the New Yorker, but like I want to be like the best, editor for like my peers as possible. Like if they give me something and they want thoughts on it, I want to give them the best thoughts that I possibly can, and do like good work from that. And I'd love to be able to approach teaching someday, like from that perspective too, of like, hey, how do there's so many ways to approach like uh, creative teaching and like that thought. My hope is that if I'm lucky enough to also get to do that, boy, I'm setting this really high bar for myself. Like, but if I'm lucky enough to also get to do that, like, I know that like I want to be the kind of teacher and I think that I am in a lot of ways already like this when I do um, teach and do work is like I'm not trying to mold somebody into me. I'm trying to help them be their best them, and just give them like my thoughts like from that perspective. Like I'm not gonna, I can't imagine. I have a really hard time like approaching things with like, boy, it would have been better if they did it like this. It's just more like I think I see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. I think they missed this, or like or like here's another constructor, or maybe you could do like a little bit more of this, but none of that's from the perspective of trying to make them like me. It's just like trying to help them get their story out, like in some ways, too, like from that perspective. So.
Are there any other creatives out there that you recommend that we keep an eye on?
Oh my God, I have such a long list. Well, everybody I said before, the so like Megan O'Rourke, R.F. Kuang, Latanya McQueen, Mary Collins, Ethan Rutherford, Jotham Borello, Molly Gowdery. Um, I'm forgetting like half a dozen names. Minjin Lee is I hope I get to meet her someday. She's a Korean American author. Um, Pachinko is like Pachinko is like a companion for me. It's a companion book to my mom's life story. It's because it's like it's set around the same time that like my mom grew up. My mom's story is very different, but it is. It's like I could see the edges like of so many things in there. And my hope some days is that like I get to write my mom's story and I can finally do it, and that people would read those together, not from the just from the perspective of like you would get like this perspective of people who just hold like 2 to 4 generations of people who just are don't talk about themselves and don't know how to talk about like what they went through, and what they went through was um something that people like just that should never happen like to people, and that has happened like kind of quite a bit before too. There's 2 podcasters I'd like to mention, they're podcasters I think you should actually reach out to. Jasmine Romero. She's fantastic. She's a fantastic storyteller. She is a fantastic producer. She's excellent, like kind of creative as well. I think she's what is it, Princess of South Beach, I think is probably the big one that people might know, like that she's done right now, but like literally everything she's done. If you get lucky enough to work with her as a producer, oh my God, she's wonderful. Like I got lucky. I got to a pilot that I did for a fiction podcast. Jasmine produced it with me for Spotify. Spotify paid for it, and then it was originally going to be for like Spotify Kids and Family, but then they canceled the Kids and Family brand. So it's just been sitting on a shelf like since then. Maybe someday like I'll try to do something like with that. Most likely that podcast is going to become like a book first, but I got to work with Jasmine Romero on that, and she is fantastic because she's a fantastic human being. That's actually the first part. I gave all the reasons like why someone would want to talk to her, but she's just a fantastic person, like just from the get-go. Laura Lyons. There's multiple Laura Lyons, but there's Laura Lyons, the comedian. She has a podcast called Iconically Ill. Iconically Ill is amazing. Some people might know Laura because in the early days of 2020, she got COVID-19 and she was put into a coma. And I think there was a GoFundMe because she was in a medically induced coma, like in Boston. So she had to be life flighted from New York to Boston because the hospitals were full here.
Hmm.
And then she was on a respirator for unconscious, like in a coma for about 6 months. Medical bills were astronomical. Like her family did a GoFundMe, and a lot of people liked help from that. And she came out of that physically with a permanent disability. She's going to be on oxygen for the rest of her life. But her spirit is just, she's just there. She's still the same firecracker person that I did improv and sketch comedy with, like on many stages, like in Manhattan, still there. And her podcast, Iconically Ill, is all about people like living like with chronic illness, like on there too. And it's a lot of times like very funny too, because of course it is, because Laura's hilarious. So, um, There's so many more. I could just keep talking. That actually could have been the podcast. You could just ask me that, and then it would have been like an hour of me just listing names, like and why. But yeah, I think those are all the folks that come top of mind. And by the way, if I forgot anybody, maybe we'll talk again like someday, and then I can have my mea culpa like for forgetting some folks. So
Well, thank you so much. Now we're going to bring the interview back to you.
okay,
And I have a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, Fred, why is creativity important for you?
we are all the main character of the story of life, but the way that we live as people, we can only observe life from our perspective, right? And when we read stories, when we watch stories, we can only tell them certain ways, often like from the perspective of one or two people, because that's the limitation of life. But there is no, like in a story, there might be a side character, there might be a background character, right? In a movie, like especially, but in life, we are all the main character. And we are the main character in a story that maybe you need to be a multidimensional being like to see like an experience like that, right? Every one of us tells our stories like through our creativity. Some of us write, some of us tell like a linear chronological narrative, some of us are writing poems, some of us are making podcasts, some of us are making paintings, but all of that is us expressing ourselves as the main character of life because we are all the main character of life. And that's why the creativity matters, like to me, because everybody's story has meaning and matters and has weight. Um, Me and you, right? I might be a side character in your life story like right now because we happen to have crossed paths, and you might be a side character in my life story because we happen to have crossed paths. But that does not make either of us a side character in the story of life. We are both like the main character in the story of life, like itself. And every human being's life story is worth telling. And the way we tell those life stories is through like our creativity in whatever form like that takes. Hopefully in a way that's um benevolent like to other people, like above all.
Thank you so much, Fred. And where can people find your work?
Not really anywhere like right now. Well, that's not true. Let's see here. If you go to my website, like I'm very proud, like I've got like after a little bit of struggle, like I've got like my own website, fredchongrutherford.com. Just go there and that will be the jumping off point. It's a little sparse like right now, but that's where people can go find like these works too. And I think there's podcasts that I've been on over the years. If you search Mike my name on Apple, I think there's a few that I've done voiceover work and things. If you want to find like some of those, and I have like pieces like written here or there. My hope is that in between now and sometime in the future, my hope is that you can find me like on the shelves like of a bookstore somewhere like as well too, and we'll see like how that journey goes too. So.
Yeah, and as soon as that book is out, I'll be adding it to my bookshelf. That's what I want.
Thank you. And my novel. Can I plug my
Yes.
novel?
Yes, please.
My so my memoir is called my working title for the memoir. If I'm lucky enough to get it published, we'll see if it sticks with this. But the working title for my memoir is The Invincible Joy Rebel. That was a name that I gave myself as a little kid. That's the secret kung fu master name I gave myself as a little kid. And then my novel is called The Immortal. I just forgot the name of my own novel. The novel is called The Immortal Flower, and It's set in a fantasy world that's based on ancient Korea and ancient China and a few countries there, and it's about an uh, a magical creature named an Oku, who's basically like a Tolkien orc, but orc would be considered a slur in his language. So he's an Oku, a teenage Oku who's lost his memory, who wants to escape the country of Daehan because he's just doesn't want to face prejudice like in Daehan anymore. And then he crosses paths like with a couple of teenagers who want to plant this thing called the immortal flower, like in honor of of their mother. And helping these teenagers. The whole country believes that he has kidnapped these teenagers, so the entire country is chasing after them while all they're trying to do is just go plant like this seed in honor of their mother. And there's talking tigers and dragons and lots of magic in it, and terms like witch boxing, which is my favorite thing ever. And hopefully that like becomes like a book that people love like someday too. Like my hope is that someday like that book and many of the other fantasy novels I want to write become the books for the other little kids that were like me that want to discover, hey, I think that me doing cursive practice is me practicing wizard school.
And where can we find the book? Is it on your website?
It's not published yet. Like I have to finish the draft and then I have to start soliciting it out like to agents
Oh,
too
the
next.
novel also?
Yeah. I
Oh,
wrote the
okay.
novel and the memoir. I wrote the novel and the memoir at the same time. I wrote the novel last year, and then I started writing like the memoir. And then I talked to somebody that I met somebody this summer. They were interested in the memoir, so I got focused on this. I have to finish the last draft of the. I have to finish the memoir sample, get that off, start doing agent queries with that. Then I have to finish like the novel draft and start doing like the queries like for that as well too. And I've already got a couple folks that are interested in seeing that. But interest is not the same thing as like someone signing something and saying yes, but we'll see like what comes from there. So hopefully, and who knows, it could be never, could be 10 years from now, could be next year, could be 6 months, who knows. But my website, fredchongrutherford.com, like that's how you can find like stuff that I'm working on. And I promise to keep getting updates like on the site and getting like things out there too. So Ryan, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure like to meet you like and talk with you. Mostly me talking at you, like, but I just I really appreciate it and thanks again like for having me on.
Thank you so much. And to those in the audience, I will be leaving a link to Fred's website so you can check out his stuff over there. And to those listening, thank you so much for listening to Creativity Worth Expressing. And for our guest today, Fred, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Very welcome. 감사합니다.